All right, Mark, good to see you, buddy. It's been a little
Hey, yeah,
while.
good to see you. Yeah, right. Good to see you too, Tim. How have you been?
It's been probably a good, what, like 6 weeks since we've done something. Just like, I think both of us have been grinding.
Yeah, yeah, definitely been grinding for sure. I know you've been cooking too.
Yeah, man.
What you been up to?
What kind of stuff you been working on?
Yeah, so a bunch of different things. A lot of AI related stuff and just really kind of just using AI. So
Mhm.
we released a new dashboard for the Sigmanauts mining pool that I guess vibe coded through, and so it's just so much better. It's like I'm pretty proud of it, especially just compared to the older version that we had. Um, and then yeah, working on some actual AI tools, so model context protocol servers for the blockchain, trying to get that ready to go for the upcoming ErgoHack. And then we're also talking with some other blockchains and kind of working on maybe some proposals to facilitate this sort of framework, working on sort of maybe a cross chain sort of application. Um, so working with Canon and QX on that, trying to kind of button that up and see where we kind of want to take that. So
That's sick, man. You wanna show us the new dashboard?
yeah, totally. Let's see. Let me pull it up.
I'm excited to kind of like ask some questions about it.
Yeah, and then I have another one I can show too. It's about the minor rights protocol. Just whipped that up yesterday. So, but yeah, here's our mining pool dashboard right now.
Can you zoom in?
Here actually, let me do this. How do I stop sharing? And go over here. Cool. How's
Oh
that?
yeah, way better.
Cool, cool, cool. Sweet. So yeah, we just have like our general stats, right? So hash rate, pool effort. Some other sort of panels have a lot more data, so they take a little bit longer to load.
Mhm.
Um, got our pool's hash rate. I've got some other comments to where it's like, it'd be nice if we could see 2 days, not just 5 days, so sort of squash the data down.
Uh-huh.
We click one of these here. We go to the miners page.
Oh, you've got all kinds of stuff in there. That's cool, dude.
So we can see, so it looks like they've got a pending balance of 25 ergs. They've been paid that much. That's their hash rate. You can check out their worker history, last 24 hours, 7 days. They qualify for the bonus tokens. Um, so it looks like maybe this one rig right here, um, Zeus, maybe they put another GPU or something on that because it just got a
Uh-huh.
nice pump. And we can see payments over time. So it looks like they're consistently getting 50 every 10 days.
50 ergs every 10 days. That's not bad.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Then we go to our blocks. So this is all of our blocks that the pool is found, and then the purple is highlighted for demirage. So you can see most of our blocks are demirage blocks, which is cool to see. Um,
Wow. That's a
and then these are
lot. Like,
orphans, unfortunately.
I
Mm-hmm.
see. That's a lot of demirage. That's more than I was expecting, like every block. So, okay, I have maybe a couple questions. So, like on average, I mean, it looks like you're probably pulling like 3 erg per block extra due to demirage. And is that because nobody else is claiming the demirage, or is everyone kind of always pulling that? Is that like a consistent 3 erg bump?
Right. Yeah, it's pretty much basically because let's see, Sigma space. Yeah, because we're the only pool. So you can see this, right? Sigma space.
No, I'm still in
Or
Demirage.
okay, let me sure. It's because I'm sharing a specific tab. So if we look here, we can see there's 116. So any pool mining pool could basically go out and get this. But because we're the only mining pool that's running Demirage, it is most likely that we are going to be the ones that are collecting that. And then 400 over the next 30 days. And then
Wow.
23 or 4 in the next 24 hours.
That's really cool, man. Wow. So everyone's just leaving that on the table. And now
Right.
it's like, I mean, the mining reward is 15 erg, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like a 20% bump for
Right.
you.
Totally.
Wow.
Totally. And so you can see we're getting 80%, 88% of all of our blocks within the last 7 days were Demirage. We collected 83 ergs over the last 7 days, and so that's an average 2.5. So I mean, we go from 15, so it's like 17.5, for our block rewards effectively. Um, and let's see,
Wow, that's sick, man.
and so last week we distributed 118, call it 119, um, for a weekly. So we do this every week. And so then if you had like say 10 gigahash, right? How much would you benefit? So you probably get an extra 28 ergs a month if you mined with us this last month, or if you mined with us
Yeah.
for 10 gigahash, you can get
Yeah.
1.29.
Okay.
And then
So maybe I'll ask some noob questions
yeah, go ahead.
and not because I'm trying to give people softballs, it's because I really I'm a noob and I want to know. So like, okay, so you said 10 gigahash. Um, maybe two questions on that. How many GPUs is 10 gigahash, and like how much, what kind of an investment would somebody need to make to mine
True.
with 10 gigahash, and like how much electricity is that going to cost someone?
Quite a lot from what I for my experience. So with all of my mining cards, and it depends on which cards specifically, right? Because I had a bunch of different cards. So I was running Vegas 64s and I was running 64s and 56s. It's ironic that I'm trying to load this and it's taking so slow. It should be cached, but in any case, there we go. So that and then CMP 170 HXs. So I had six CMPs and then the rest, and so 30 total, and I only had 5 gigahash, and I was probably paying like upwards to like $500 to $600 in electricity a month,
Huh.
like when I was mining. So
Yeah.
so double that, right? So in terms of electricity, definitely probably like over 1,000, and I was probably at 11 cents per kilowatt hour. And then from an investment perspective, like the CMP cards are probably I think like $600, and so then they get about like 350 if you kind of underclock them correctly. Um, and so I think I was getting like 2 gigahash for my whole set of the CMP cards. And so, I mean, certainly quite the investment,
Yeah.
to get 10
Yeah.
gigahash for sure.
Uh-huh. Okay. Um, that's helpful for just like kind of context. I understand it's a lot. So I mean, you're talking maybe like 10 grand and then monthly expenses, and then you're
Right.
pulling in. Um, I guess you would make your ROI might be like 2 years or something like that. Sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Okay.
And then, but then it could be actually a little bit longer, right? Because, I mean, because Ergo has a very fast track relative to the reward reduction. So I mean,
Mhm.
your estimates are right now, or it assumes like the block reward sort of stays the same, right? And
Yeah.
so, but every 3 months it's going to be lower and lower and lower. But somehow the
Yeah.
price kind of probably needs to catch up because
Yeah.
now we're mining 3 blocks, or I'm sorry, 3 ergs less per block now, and so that's going to
Yeah.
translate in some way.
Yeah, and that could actually reduce your ROI if you hung on to the erg that you got at the front end of
Right.
that. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Cool. Um, okay, other questions. Can you go to the dashboard?
Yeah.
Just the front? Yeah. Okay. So Pool effort. Can you tell me about effort? What does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, this is a statistic. blah, Statistic. And so basically, on average, to find a specific block, it takes around 2 minutes. And so if the effort is a 100%, then it took that exact amount of time. Now, if it's over
Mm,
100% or one, then it was a little bit harder to find. And so this adjusts relative. And so you can either get really lucky, your pool could be under 100%, and that's just sort of the luck factor. And so this is essentially what that is. It says
I
how
see.
lucky is the pool? It should
And
trend to
it,
100%.
and it's probably kind of also like weighing the hash rate against the difficulty. So if it's more than 100 for too long, the difficulty might get bumped up. Or is that just your pool, not the whole network?
Yeah, so yeah, this is just for our pool
Okay.
finding blocks.
Okay.
But it's so with the difficulty with what you said, the way so if we have more hash rate, the difficulty will increase respectively to that to maintain the 2 minute block time.
I see. That's sick. Um,
So yeah, so we see
pool pool fee I
average block
see
time. Mhm.
is 1%. That seems super reasonable. Is that like a an industry norm, or are you all lower, or like
Yeah, I'd say we're about this kind of level playing field. We did have zero point 0.9 for the longest time, but we didn't really see like an influx of people kind of
yeah,
coming to the pool. And
yeah.
so I was like, well, you know, it's not really helping us any. You know what I mean? People are here, and we're sort of staying. So I made a proposal through our DAO to change it back to 1%. And so this is common for PPLNS. So pay per last N shares. And so effectively, this is sort of like a window.
Hmm.
And so basically, say you started mining to our pool and then you found a block, you have like so many shares that would be submitted, but you wouldn't have like the full window of shares. So you're actually only going to get a subset of those shares. But if you
Yeah,
mine for, say, 24 hours, sorry, 24 hours, then you'd have the full participation, I suppose,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then you'll
That
get
makes
the
sense.
maximum amount of reward relative to your hash rate. And so
Okay.
basically, it's basically kind of like you start joining our effort. You're not going to immediately get to the front of the line, right? You know what I mean? You're going to have to, like, so to speak, wait your turn, and then you have waited in line, so to speak, and then
Yeah.
now you get paid for waiting in line with everybody else in some
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Um,
But some pools do pay per share, and so you actually get paid out regardless of us finding a block. So basically, we the miners will only ever get paid if we find a block, but other pools will get paid for your shares regardless. And so there's sort of a trade off of in between. And I noticed a lot of Bitcoin mining pools. That's how they do it for some reason. When I was at that conference, and it was
yeah.
all full pay per share.
So it's like the mining pool is managing some escrow. So if they don't pay, or if they don't hit a block, they can still pay out to keep people incentivized to participate in.
Right.
I guess that maybe makes sense if the difficulty is super high, or there's just like a lot of miners, the hash rate is super high, and you need to
Right.
incentivize people with more frequent payments. That
Hmm.
that that makes sense.
But then I
Okay.
think then on the flip side, so the pool is sort of taking a risk because then what happens if the pool is like essentially unlucky or has a very high effort? So then with that, generally it seems like they charge a higher pool fee, so like 2% or 2.5%.
Mhm.
So kind of covering their butts if they don't find a block or people pool hop.
Okay, sick. I see 43 miners. How much does that number fluctuate?
It recently has fluctuated a lot. I want to say we probably at most have had like 60 miners on the pool, and this could be, and so this is actually we just lost somebody. This is per rig per address, and so I can have, like, for example, I think at most had like 4 rigs, and so I could set up one rig with a specific address, and then those would be a unique miner, or they could have all the same address, then that would be one unique miner. So really, you know, I could fib it and be like, all right, cool. Here's 4 more miners, unique miners, but it's obviously not necessarily the case.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's how we calculate active miners.
Okay. No, that makes sense. What do you think would take uh what do you think it would take to, double or 10x or whatever? Like how do you imagine increasing the number of people mining to the Sigmanauts mining pool?
Yeah, I think the first step was this having like this sexy dashboard, if I could call it sexy.
I think it's pretty
We
sexy.
needed, yeah, we needed a way to, not make it look sort of like old tech or, it looks like reliable. We've got everything here. Whereas last dashboard, I didn't really have a lot of this information. I didn't have, you know, how this all works, these sort of block explorers and the like, and an email to reach out to us, Discord. A lot of it was kind of dispersed, and we also have a sigmanauts.com page, and so I think this definitely helps us look quote unquote more legit, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think initially it's like what we need to do. It's like, all right, it needs to like look legit. We can kind of come back, it's very responsive, and then things like that. So that's kind of the first step. The next step is sort of just to kind of create some tools. So why to make people, so to speak, um, come to the pool. And so I will actually pivot to this tab. And so this is the minor rights protocol. So this would be the only protocol, or rather, this would be the only mining pool that the protocol would actually run on. And so the idea is sort of a synthetic mining on the pool itself. And so the idea is, you can set up a protocol. So the token name, all this sort of stuff, the emission details for a given token. So how much reward per block, emission reduction, rules, total supply cap. Um, and then we can look at our given stats. And so the whole point of this is that it's going to run on top of the Sigmanauts mining pool, so people can launch their own token. We'll have a smart contract that looks for the miners that actually have the rights token, and if they have the rights token, then they will be able to quote unquote mint this block for this token, and then they will be distributed. The token itself with all the other miners that actually have the token the rights token, and so then they can sell that back into the community. So basically, we're kind of bootstrapping the Ergo blockchain into tokens, so sort of
Mhm.
a fair initial miner offering. And so trying to just come up with like I guess uh, different ways to facilitate, why come to our pool. It's like if you want to mine this token and just dump it, and because people want to buy it, then yeah, you're gonna have to come to our pool. There's not really, or same thing with
Yeah.
Demirage. Right now we're the only pool with Demirage. We have bonus tokens, and so you can kind of see here, this sort of sample would be like, hey, we have 248 mega hash for this given token. However many miners you can see. So this would be kind of almost, you could kind of think about it like a pool within a pool. So where like a group of miners are like essentially mining this specific token, and
Okay.
there's some
So
specifics that you
something
work out.
crazy idea. I have let's say I have an app that I want to make for the ErgoHack, and it's going to have a token that people need to, use like as the currency in that app.
Right.
I would sell a miner's rights NFT to the pool or to individual miners, and then they would mine in the Sigmanauts mining pool, and then as a part of their reward, they would receive my tokens.
Right.
Well, it's free, but they bought the NFT token, right? And
Right.
then they could either then have access to my app using those tokens, or they could sell it on the open market.
Totally. Totally.
Dude, that seems really cool.
Yeah, and
Props.
you can think of it like the minor rights token is like buying a GPU. So do you want to, and as a protocol owner, you could be like, well, you could buy like, up to 5 rights tokens, that 5x's. So then if there's an incentive for like the smaller miners, because if the big miner just comes in and buys one token, and then you could just, well, they're obviously going to get the lion's share, but you could buy more synthetic GPU, so to speak, miner rights
Yeah.
tokens, to then have more participation accordingly. Or, so it could be just based off the rights token, and that's like its own considered hash rate, or it could be tied to the actual hash rate, or it could be a culmination of both, or just hash rate. And so and so there's a bunch of different things you can like think of, right? And so as a protocol owner, you can kind of figure that out, and enables you to
Uh-huh.
do kind of whatever you want. And so yeah, your application, that'd be pretty sick to do. And you don't even have to do the entire supply. You could be like, hey, I'm going to give the mining pool
Uh-huh.
so much to mine, like maybe 50% is going to be mined, and then another 50%. So then there's an incentive to people to buy it, the miners to be like, oh, wow, there is inherent value. Let me mine it and buy this rights token, and then
Okay.
sell it and do whatever
So
you want.
what
Like
about
there's a
this?
bunch of
Like,
options.
what if, so let's say I have my app and I minted a million tokens to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I put them all in the miners' rights protocol, and they're being distributed. They're being sold on the open market by the miners, and I'm taking them back in. It's like a circular economy, right? I'm taking those tokens back in through my app.
Okay.
Do, can I then like give it back into this um, miners' rights distribution, or
Oh,
would
totally.
I? Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see
yeah.
why
So I can
not.
like
I mean,
re-up.
yeah,
Cool.
because it's basically a smart contract, and so all you would need to do is send that amount to the smart contract. But a caveat would be is, so for every transaction is based upon the block, right? And so say we have 70 miners, we have to create 70 new boxes to send through. So 0.01 times 70. And if that increases to 70 to 140, well, now we need double the amount of erg. And so the only caveat would be is more miners, more erg you're going to need to transact. And so as a protocol owner, and that's where some of the miner rights protocol buying in terms of erg would probably go to. You probably take some amount and then distribute it into that smart contract. So there is ERG to be able to distribute. So yes, you could take some of those tokens and re-emit them, or not re-emit them, but reapply them into the original,
Uh-huh.
into the emission contract. But you probably also would want to figure out some way to add more ERG into the actual smart contract.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That
That
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
That's
then
super cool, man.
there's protocol fees, so you could give yourself whatever fee just for people to transact with, or so when the miners mine the block, you could give the pool a fee, right? If you don't give the pool a fee, there's probably no incentive for us to integrate it into our system. um, and then also a fee for yourself if you want, or not, right? Again, there's so many different like tokenomics you can kind of facilitate um, with that. So, and then the idea would be you could buy the rights tokens on Mu Finance. And so,
Mhm.
kind of, I don't want to really deal with minting. I don't really want to deal with buying. Like, you do that, it's just enter in the information, buy it off Mu Finance. And then this dashboard will have to come up with some sort of APIs and things to sort of track. I have a lot of the stuff in the back end. I ran it, and it ran successfully for about a month and a half through like an airdrop version. So now I just need to come up with a smart contract sort of layer. I'm thinking I might probably try to pay somebody to write that smart contract for me, because I'm pretty busy at the moment.
Yeah, right on. Dude, that's super cool. Um, I see that your sexy site was made by Lovable. Uh,
Yeah,
I had my first experience with Lovable and thought it was super cool. You want to talk to people about like what Lovable is and like how you're using AI kind of generally, and then we
yeah,
can
totally.
talk about the hack.
Yeah, so Lovable basically is like a wrapper on top of like any what is it? Um, any AI layer, right? And so basically, what I did was, I formatted a prompt, entered this in here, and you can kind of see like this one. This is what I came up with for the mining page, right? Um, you can kind of see the initial sort of what I was looking to do, and so the initial prompt. It's funny, it doesn't load. But basically what I did is this is like a UI engine. And so I was like, hey, here's the prompts, here's a project overview, branding and theming elements, concepts, technical requirements, core sections. So basically trying to just say, hey, this is what the project is. Go out and just like make it.
Uh-huh.
And it did exactly that. Um, and I've been using this for a lot of my APIs, UIs, as of late. Like I also have this. I created this page. It's kind of buggy, and I did this like in a kind of short amount of time. Let's see if it even opens. Looks like it's doing something. Okay. Well, in any case, but yeah, so using AI to facilitate that, and then from there, I'm using Cursor. So I will share it again. So it's an AI code editor. It's kind of like a VS Code. So you have this little chat box here. You can add context sort of as needed. And so basically what I do is with Lovable, you can like, let's see, you can go here and then you can say, hey, transfer this to a GitHub project. It's going to grab it and push it into my GitHub repo here. Now I have it, and now I can clone it, pull that into Cursor, and then I can work on the back end. And so for me, that's how I'm sort of like using these AI tools. But then of course, you also have, right, you have like Grok. And so I'll like use Grok to like craft the prompt before I take that into Lovable. I'll even use Claude as well. Um, and then kind of from there, I'm using, this will probably be my submission for the, for the actual ErgoHack. Um, am I sharing the right one?
Yeah, yeah. Your MCP.
Okay, sweet. So basically what I'm looking to do is this diagram right here where I have this MCP client and this local data source is sort of the Ergo blockchain, and then people can kind of build tools and do things like on top of it. And so I
Uh-huh.
can actually show you what I've done. Let's see. Okay, cool. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so now I'm in Cursor, and this was like a query I gave it. And so I said, hey, I need the holders of all this NFT collection. Call this tool get collection. It says, hey, this is the Shark NFT collection, something I made. And then here's all the addresses for the top 20 holders. Then I was like, okay, great. Let's make a JSON out of this. And so now I have an entire JSON for the holders of this NFT collection. And then here's another one using the Rosen Watcher trading card game. So looks like we have 76 unique holders. I didn't grab them, but I was just like, hey, how many do you have, right? So
Yeah,
basically
so
being able
so
to
it's
query
just like, yeah, that's what I was about to say. You could just like kind of natural language query the blockchain, and it'll tell you whatever information you might want to know.
yeah, exactly. And so like the sky's the limit just in terms of like tools that you have. So if you can
Yeah.
think up a tool that it has, then give it that ability to do that, then you can kind of go from there. And so what I want to do on top of this is be able to facilitate sort of sending transactions and integrating with smart contracts and kind of a more like agent type framework. And I saw somebody made a using Zapier came up with like a trading agent where it looks at just purely the RSI, and then it can go and buy, sell, or do nothing. And so I was like, oh, this would be super simple to where I could probably grab the RSI and then manipulate that to then buy or sell SigUSD on a DEX.
Hmm.
So grab the RSI based upon the DEX trades for that given token pair, calculate the RSI from that, and then from there, hey, do we want to buy or sell? And so the agent sort of flow is very no code, so that's kind of nice. So once I'm done with the MCP, it should be pretty um, hit the ground running with that stuff.
Hmm. That's really cool, man. Um, I see some similarities in like how you and I are using AI. I'm a little bit I'm not so technical on like the blockchain side and like the coding side, but I thought it was just cool to see like okay, I'm on the right track and I'm kind of like doing what you're doing, just at a
Mm-hmm.
different layer. Um, I'll share my screen and just show kind of what I've been working on. Um, so I really do like Grok as like my first step. And it's cool for me because it's got like this deep search and then the
Yes.
reasoning function. So what I'll do is like I'll use this search to kind of compile all of the resources that I might need
Oh
to
no, I think my
construct a
internet's
really
blocking
powerful
out.
prompt. Yeah, so for example, I'll show you something that I made. I made a bot to kind of implement a mental health framework. So for somebody to kind of work on their own mental health. And so I just pulled in like all of the transcripts from several episodes from a psychologist that I really like on YouTube. And
Okay.
then I had Grok summarize. It was just like 230 pages of transcripts. So it was a huge
Oh
file,
wow.
and then I had it organize this into a structured outline for like what is the framework for improving your mental health, and then I use deep search to find more resources that are related to this, and then I use my think to structure an advanced prompt to direct an LLM chatbot to walk a person through this framework in a way that is responsive to their needs and yada yada. You just kind of tell it like what you want the bot to do, and then so you use think and it has all this context that you just created, and then it structures a really powerful prompt. And so I've been using something called playlab.ai, and so you can just come in here and you're gonna be able to just access this based on that prompt. And so it's like, oh, here, this is the bot, and here's what I'm programmed to do, and then it's gonna walk me through that framework of working on my mental health. And it starts off like, oh yeah, you like understand yourself and your challenges, and then all the different parts of your mind and your personality, and it goes into like making recommendations for strategies about how to relieve stress or whatever. It's really good. And so I've started like I've become pretty proficient at making tools around this kind of format with Playlab. The limitation with Playlab is that it's just a chatbot right now, and so you're really just like input output. It doesn't. It's not like a model context protocol where it can actually control something and like take any actions outside of this context. Um, but I've also kind of used Lovable to kind of structure all these chatbots in a way that's really cool. So here's something I've been working on. Um, this is for project-based learning in schools, and so a teacher would just come here, and then they can start like this is like a template of a Google Doc where it has all the like blank spaces where all the parts of their project would go, and then they can use these different tools, and each one is a chatbot for like a part of designing a really cool project for a kid or for your classroom. And then this one, it does what I just showed you in Grok. It takes all this information that you created, and then it formats it um, into a prompt to direct this final bot. And so this bot, you just copy everything that you got from here, and then you're going to
Okay,
put it
nice.
into the back end of this. And then you have a student-facing AI that's trained on the project you just created. So like every kid now has this like guide for helping them, figure out like if you could do like a really high level project now because every kid has a tutor, and
Right.
it's not only trained on the steps in the project, like oh like it's week 2 and I'm supposed to be building something, like what do I do? And it'll tell you, but it'll also help you with the math in a way that won't give you the answer, but it'll kind of implement some like feedback strategies that I've given it, and it's aligned with our math curriculum. So if a student's struggling with trigonometry or whatever, it pulls from a bank of problems that I've already given it. And so
Okay, wow, that's
yeah,
pretty powerful.
dude, I think so. I'm excited about it. I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's going to
awesome.
be cool. Yeah.
What would you say kind of was your hardest part about like getting set up and stuff and like working, I guess, with AI? Would you say, you know?
Mm, I think the first, like the big shift that had to happen was like understanding how to link AI to like my real life, right?
Okay.
Because it's like I can have all these, there's all these tools that exist already and like a bunch of chatbots, but they don't really have anything to do with me. It's like you can
Mhm.
find things and it's like cool. But it seems that AI is the center of that interaction. Like I'm just there like to use the tool. But in the thing that I just made, it's like it really centers the students and learning. And I don't want them to just like, be on their phone talking to the AI. Like they're actually building something. And so I really think AI should be like the purpose should be to enable us to do all the more human things um, uninterrupted, and get rid of that tedious stuff like,
Mhm.
tedious planning and organizing and finding the document, but that's just like, oh, where's the sheet that I need to do for this step in the project, and it'll give it to you.
Mhm.
Um, so I
Okay.
think that shift was like the hardest thing to like understand what's useful and what's not. Um, and then the second part is just learning how to structure prompts so that you can get consistent and high
Totally.
quality output. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that has been the challenge. I also see like, going from like where I'm at right now to where you're at, like there's a layer of like data structures that I need to learn. Like I don't really understand how apps work on the back end and like having different things talk to each other. And I don't have the vocabulary to kind of say like, I want this bot to pull from this database and then make these decisions
Yeah.
and then do this other thing. Like that works for me because I'm speaking English, but I don't know how to do that in code. Um,
Yeah. No, dude,
so
totally. And that's honestly super hard because I'm making an iOS app for the sigmanauts mining pool, and I don't know anything about Swift or Xcode, and so it's telling me like, okay, go to the inspector page, go and click, this button, and it's like, what is that? I'm like, so I'm sending screenshots, like, this is where I'm at. Walk me through. I have no idea like what you're talking about, and it's definitely a learning curve for
yeah,
sure to kind of get the jargon and the lingo right.
yeah. But stuff like Lovable is really empowering, I feel like.
Yeah,
And um I just like feel super confident in like we can get there. I don't know how long it's going to take. Um,
yeah,
but if you're just like careful and you use your tools and kind of do what I did, like pull the resources in, get all that context that the AI is going to need to know, like about Xcode or programming this type of app or whatever, and then you can ask it those
right,
questions, and it'll give you the good information. Um,
totally.
mhm.
Yeah, and so I guess, and kind of like what you're kind of touching on, right, is like sort of templating. Like before you put it all into Lovable, you're kind of coming up with this like nice template that's like bulletproof. There's no way for it to kind of go over here. It's kind of stay in this lane, don't go anywhere else. And I've noticed when I code with it, having a nice template really kind of keeps it within the bounds. Because I think as we prompt, and maybe you've discovered this, it's like the more language you give it, it's actually like the more it gets confused. And so it's like honestly, like the less input you can give it is like the most ideal to
Yeah,
maximize your output that you're trying to get. Right?
yeah, dude, that's totally true. Um, so something that I made to help me with doing that, I just like made another bot. Um,
Hell yeah.
and it's like a CTO, that's a kind of the prompt I gave it. I was like, you're the technical lead in this project design team, and I'm going to tell you my idea, and then I want you to structure a plan, a really high detailed plan for how to execute every step of this project. And so then it just like kind of takes your idea and then, well, just what you had, it was like, oh, here's the step one, here's how you do the
Yeah.
UI, and then the data structures, and then, logging in and all this stuff. And then Lovable just kind of references that, and then it goes through one step at a time. And like, okay, does this look good? All right, now next step. Okay, does this look good? Next step.
Totally. Yeah, and
Hmm.
so really it's like planning. Planning is just so key, and like having these diagrams, making sure it makes sense to you before it goes off and does something. Because
Hmm.
like, um, you know, pictures are 1,000 words, and so if you can make a diagram, that's probably pretty close to 1,000 words versus, you trying to create like 1,000 word prompt. That's not really super ideal, right? I don't want to sit there and
Yeah.
write down 1,000 words. I'd rather just be like, hey, like you're saying, make this diagram, make this sort of like architecture. Let's make these specifications, um, and then we'll go out and actually create it, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And I feel like it's so I just like think about AI as abundance. It's like it's AI as abundance, and all of this is available. And even if the tool, okay, Lovable, like to get like kind of a lot of tokens through Lovable, it's like $50 a month, you know, and that's like enough to make a lot of stuff. And
Yeah,
so
it
and so
is.
if you can just come up with something like let's just say I made my mental health bot, right? And I wanted to sell that for $1. Like tell me I can't get 50 people to pay $1 for this thing. And
Oh,
it's
right.
like,
Yeah,
that I
easy to.
just paid for it. Easy,
Yeah.
easy. And I really think that if anybody who's listening, like if you have some specialized knowledge that other people don't have, and you can really ask those powerful questions to design um, a really poignant, cutting prompt, that's going to get to the thing that makes your knowledge useful. That's money, that's value, and all you got to
Totally.
do is go to Lovable, and then you put your bot in or whatever the information is, and it's so simple to just set up a payment system. It's like you just tell
Right.
it that you want to make people have to pay $5 for your thing, and then it gives them open access or like whatever, and it does it, and it's like so I just think of AI as abundance, and we're talking about also ergo here, where cryptography is more like um, the opposite. It's scarcity and security and structure and like definite things. AI is like this immutable. It could be anything, but the blockchain is like it is what it is, and it's protected by cryptography. And so it's like together, like those two things are just really powerful. And so I'm excited to get to that point where I can use them together because it feels like, like the wheel and gasoline, like, let's go.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of goes back into the idea of what we were talking about, a month or so ago with player versus environment and just like kind of creating these tools and kind of something that I'm hoping is with this MCP server with Ergo, people can build on that, take it and add it into their applications and then kind of go from there so they don't have to worry about, and they can call the blockchain and, and part of like this EF grant I made last year was like, miners are like developers in plain sight. Well, now with AI, really anybody can be a developer in plain sight. Kind of just like, hey, what is sort of a problem that Ergo meets that I kind of want to have to, or that I want to solve that's specific to my human lived experience. And now it's a lot easier for me to kind of go out there and make this sort of application. So for you, right, Tim, you can make a website. You can either pay in USD or you can pay in like ERG with Nautilus and have like that sort of extension in there, and that would actually be a really cool tool to have sort of a Nautilus quick, easy integration extension with Fleet SDK. I know they have Fleet SDK, but um, you know, you know that would be like a sick sort of add-on to be able to facilitate. So then you can make whatever tool, then have sort of an Ergo sort of payment on ramp, off ramp, whatever
Yeah.
for your product.
Yeah, and I really think that the end of all this is just there's so much more um, creative energy in the world, and
Yeah, yeah,
all of that stuff is like competing and lowering the cost of everything.
right.
And because it's like all you and anyone can just make an app now. And it's like, oh, I wish I had this app. I can pay $10 for it, or I can like spend a little bit of time and energy and like figure out how to do it and just make it
Right.
for myself, you know?
Totally.
And that's amazing. And not everyone's going to choose to do that because sometimes your time is worth more than $10, but that's not true of everybody. There's plenty of people in the world that make less than $10 a day. And so like, what's up?
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, this guy charges, like somebody I saw on X, it's like Calendly, they have the subscription service. They pay $20,000 a year for that. They're like, well, why wouldn't we just vibe code it and make our own? Maybe it costs 5K to make that. All right, well, cool. Now you don't have to pay this recurring cost anymore. So now we're
Yeah.
going to see sort of this fluctuate, and probably everything's going to be a lot more open source now. You know what I mean? Because like,
Yeah.
what's the point? You know what I mean?
What's the point?
Like, so yeah, put it open source. People can build on that, or keep it closed source. But then again, there's I don't know, but yeah, it's exciting times. I'm excited to
Yeah.
see where this goes.
And like the more skills you have with it, it just becomes easier to make a tool to do the thing you want than to like do it by hand. I think within reason.
Totally.
So like I think I feel comfortable doing that in the areas that I'm like really highly skilled. So for example, I'm teaching a course at the university here, and like I was like having to make some like student facing documents and like a calendar and like all this stuff where I would have to like I don't know, it probably would have taken me 3 hours. It was like 3 hours of work, but I was like, I've got all this information and I just dumped it into my bot and then structured it in a way that was really
Right.
useful. And then I just like had this bot that was trained on all this stuff. And so it took me like 30 minutes to make the tool. But then I was just like, give me a calendar for
Boop. There it
the
is.
next 6 weeks. And then boom, it was the calendar. And then it's like, okay, give me like a list of vocabulary words that everyone needs to be responsible for. I even had it like it did pretty good at this. I had to probably put more time into it, but I had it make sample assignments for me.
Okay.
Okay, I need an example for my students to look at because I'm asking them to do this stuff and it's like a lot. So just start, bam, and then it gets me like I think the goal for me in AI is like if you can get 50% of the way there, that is worth it. Like,
Totally.
you're doing a 10-hour project and you cut that in half. Like, yeah, you still have like 5 hours of work to do, and you have to know what you're doing because if you don't, you're not going to know what is trash and what is not. So you gotta you could get to 50%, and it's like that's how the world changes.
Yeah, man, and even if like some things I spin my wheels on only to find out like, oh, that wasn't the way to do it. You know, with AI, if I can get there 50% faster, that saves me a lot more time. You know what I mean? And even just like with stuff that actually is useful. Like it took me, I think, 2 or 3 months last year to make the last version of our dashboard. It took me 1 week to get it all ready, and then another week of just spinning my wheels, only to realize, oh, I was wasting some time. Let me come back. Let me do this thing differently. And then within 2 weeks, we're all done, and here we are. And so, now I can, pivot back to things I want to knock out, and like the minor rights protocol, and it's, and then it's like an iterative effect. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so now I built that. Yeah, it took a week basically and just spun my wheels. Extremely frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. Like, dude, that effing sucked. But now I'm gonna take those lessons learned, apply them to the next project, and I'm gonna get better doing that. Finding the specific skills with using AI, get better at that. And so when I go on the next project, so it's gonna hopefully eventually have this sort of like exponential effect. So as I keep iterating on project after project, it's you know, it cascades, and then you know, kind of goes from there. And so I think it's definitely the people using AI are definitely going to replace the people that aren't using AI. I don't know about AI replacing us entirely, but
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of
yeah,
nuance. It's like, we're both learning and we're both kind of coming across. There's like sort of this like natural truth relative to AI and how to use it. And we're both kind of discovering that. And so we're going to be so far ahead compared to the other people that are just now maybe adopting it today.
hmm yeah. You're totally right, and I really encourage people to like not worry about the outcome, like just engage and try something, and
Yeah,
if you have that attitude of just like learning about how to fail less next time, like that is a win.
totally.
And I was listening to a guy named Robert Rodriguez. He's a film director, and I just really liked his stuff. He was on the Lex podcast, and he was just saying like, don't be so tied to the outcomes. Focus more on process. And if you have to really judge yourself on the outcome, like at least commit to making a body of work before you judge yourself. Because like nobody did the first thing right. Nobody,
Yeah,
nobody did the first thing right. And like
yeah.
all the famous example is of like baseball. It's like the best hitters in the league strike out 7 out of 10 times or whatever. Not strike out, but they fail to get on base 7 out of 10 times.
Okay,
And
yeah,
and like that's what it is. It's success involves failure. It's all a part of it. And
for
so
sure.
I say all this before I share my screen one more time. The ErgoHack is coming up, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's about AI and trustless systems using AI. So I just really encourage people to check this out. Not only do you get a chance to like dive in and try to make something, and maybe you're successful or not, you'll learn for sure. The community is super great, and will help you. And there's going to be some tools around, kind of like what you're making and what other people have made. There's guides, and then there's also like a pretty fat first prize, second prize, third place. Like that's pretty good, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last year or last ErgoHack, I think it was a little bit less. So I mean, yeah, it's cool to see.
hmm Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
so I mean, yeah, totally. Just try, get out there. Got any questions AI related? I'm happy to answer those questions. Friendly competition. I think somebody was like, oh, we're going for number one. It's like, that's cool, but I think at the end of the day, especially with this, all boats are raised with the tide. So, whatever
mhm,
happens, happens. And I think we'll all be here, for the better of it. So,
yeah. I think if I say anything else, make sure you open source your ErgoHack submission. Like that, I think that's
yeah,
really important to the culture of building, and it's going to help other people. So think about that. You make your money how you want, but share what you got.
once it's complete, at least, right? Don't
Yeah,
want, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
yeah.
to follow up, or not really follow up, but the Ergo meetup that's happening in Colorado Springs. Are you going?
I'm going to try my best. I think I'll be able to.
Okay, sick. I'll be there. Should be fun.
Yeah,
QX has got
yeah.
a Git repo going around for the sign up and things like that. So check that out if you guys haven't seen that.
Mm, right on. Well, Mark, I think our time's about up. Let's do this again in a couple of weeks, and maybe uh, talk to people about how they can use some tools that might help them in this ergo hack. I think that'll be a cool episode.
All right, perfect. Yeah, sounds great. All right, see you,
Okay.
Tech.
Yep. Peace, buddy.